All right, y'all. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I would build an off-market campaign for Fort Thomas, Kentucky, to find 3-bed, 2-bath rentals that actually can cash flow. Hey, y'all. I'm Jay Helms. I'm founder of the W2 Capitalists and BRRRRs for Busy Parents. My wife and I, plus hundreds of others in our community, have used this same system to acquire or buy 1 to 4 rentals and or flips, you can say flips in there, a year, while still working full-time jobs and taking after the little rugrats, right? So if you're in Fort Thomas, you can thank Mr. Brandon Rice for this video. Brandon reached out. He saw one of the previous ones we did, and he was wondering if this system would work in his hometown. So we're going to do this live. Other than chatting back and forth with Brandon, I haven't done any of this yet. So we're going to unpack it live. But here's the plan for this video. First, we're going to pull 2 to 3 properties, 2 or 3-bed homes that are actively listed on the MLS. And then we're going to run through my deal check calculator together. We're going to look at a couple of those just to see how they may or may not work. And then I'm going to show you how to build an off-market campaign in Fort Thomas, right? So using the tired landlord criteria that we have. This way you're not stuck fighting over the same list of properties that are typically overpriced on the MLS in most markets right now, right? So by the end of this, you're going to have all the tools you need to conduct your own campaign. So if you're a married busy parent with 0 to 3 rentals, and your focus for 2026 is to grab 1 to 4 really good cash flowing properties and or flips, stick around. This video is for you. I've got some screen sharing we're going to do here. It is a backwards hat day. I forgot I just had the hat on backwards. But let's get into this. So let me get the right one up. Let's do a little market brief. And then we're going to dive into some MLS listings. So this is Fort Thomas, Kentucky, which I had no idea where this was until Brandon reached out. But looking at the map here, it's just right southeast of Cincinnati. I like this. I like aspects of it, I should say, from a landlord standpoint. But population, 17,400 according to the 2020 census. Growth since 2010 is roughly flat. Even though there's growth, that's a good sign. Even though it was flat or roughly flat, I don't like it as much, but at least it's not negative. Days on market, average days on market, 28 days. Nearest major MSA, as you can see, is Cincinnati, 7 miles to the northwest. So it is part of the greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky metro, which provides for the strong commuter base, right? Higher median incomes. This is one thing I found interesting, but Fort Thomas has been ranked safest city in Kentucky at least twice in the last 10 years, which I thought was very, very cool. Median home value, $250,000 to $350,000. Median gross rent, $1,200 to $1,500 for a 3-bed. BRRRR fit. This is one thing that I don't know that I've seen this before, but I found very interesting is that the owner occupancy tends to be relatively high, at 70% for all the homes there. But that still means there's still a pool of older housing stock and long-term landlords. Let's see that. This is portfolio growth roadmap. I'm going to leave this up here in case you want to screenshot it and go through it. I'm not going to go through it today, but that's all I'm going to talk about on that slide. So let's do this. Let's kind of next up, let's just start underwriting. And I found a couple of properties on the MLS or off the MLS. This one's off, so we're going to do it last. And then we're going to simply underwrite it. All the tools that I show you today, there's going to be a link somewhere around this video where you can gain access to these tools like Deal Check right here. Deal Check is free to use. We're going to get into PropStream here in a minute. It's also free to start, not completely free to use. But this is how we do this for members of our community and other people who just want to work with us to do their own off-market campaign. So we're going to look at 50 Sterling Avenue in Fort Thomas. Then we're going to take a look at one of these. This is off market. One of these was on market earlier this week, I thought. Nonetheless, we're going to still look at it. Yeah, listing removed just today. Okay. Let's dive into this one first. This is very interesting. So, what happened to the pictures? The pictures are gone. There was a lot of pictures here. I guess the listing removed. Took all the pictures with it, which is a bummer. Bummer. Okay. Maybe we're not going to do that one because I like to look at the pictures and see what we got going on inside. So we're going to just stick with these two. One that's on market and then one that's off. We'll stick with the on market first. 50 Sterling Avenue in Fort Thomas. It's like a pretty nice house. I actually like the blue door. That's really cool. What is good hardwood floors? I'm trying to figure out what that is. It's like a closet or cabinet or something. Okay. Yeah. Something the current tenants or owners didn't want to take with them. Really cool. Nice room. And when I'm looking at these as a potential landlord, what I'm looking at is anything that I'm going to have to spend money on to fix, right? To make it rent ready. So far, this one's looking very decent. I wonder what those are called. Very interesting, very cool detail. Looks pretty good. Hardwoods look like they're in pretty decent shape. Kitchen's in decent shape. Is this a bread box here? That's cool. Not as light or bright as I'd want a kitchen, but maybe that's just the way. Maybe it's just a poor camera. One bedroom. The fireplace. Is that an actual fireplace or no? That's just a. This is one of those things that look like a fireplace. I wonder if it produces heat, and just want to get into what utilities might be. There's a big closet. All right, so this is maybe, I don't know what this room is, but man, does that look like a door to a safe? That's a little odd. That is a big, thick door. Maybe it's a safe room. Maybe this is why Fort Thomas has been nominated as safest city in Kentucky multiple times, just because everybody has a safe room. Dad joke. Hope you get it. Another bedroom. Nice little desk. Interesting bath. Funky lighting, but functional, right? Finished basement. Now, here's something to pinpoint. I always look under houses for mold. Being down in Florida, this is something we constantly battle. This all looks relatively new and it's super clean, so that's awesome. Looks like a dryer, so I'm going to assume washer dryer hookups. That looks relatively new. We're going to get into the description here in a minute to show us. See if we can get an update on when some of this stuff was done. That appears to maybe be a dehumidifier of some sort, which would make sense in the basement, right? Backyard, we really don't care about as much as a tenant's going to be there. We do want to set some expectations on who's going to take care of the lawn, right? Lawn care, snow removal. All right, let's go back to the listing and look at what we can find out. It's 3.2, 1,500 square feet. Built-in unknown. Home is ready for you to call it your own. Roof was so big ticket items, right? Like the big four. Roof was replaced 3 years ago. Awesome. Means you probably don't have to mess with it for a while. HWH. Hot water heater, maybe. I don't know that I've ever seen. Hot water heater is 5 years old. It still looks relatively new. However, hot water heaters these days they only last about 7 years. So furnace is 7 years old. Pretty cool. Basement does have a shower and a toilet. Schools are close by, easy to walk to. Okay. 10 days on Zillow. Let's see if we got any kind of pricing information down here at the bottom. So it's been listed for a while. Good long while. We're probably going to find out that this has been overpriced. All right, so last May it was listed at $380. And they have come down to, and this does not appear to be a rental as is. It looks like this was somebody's primary house. Bought in 2005, 20 years ago for $149. And yeah, that's what's it, if I'm making an assumption, which I am. But they've had quite a few price drops. All right, so let's underwrite this. I'm going to grab the address real quick. And we're going to see what we would have to have it for to make a cash flow, right? So this is Deal Check. When you log in, if you're new to Deal Check, we're just going to simply tap Add Property over here on the right hand side. We're going to import property data. We're going to paste the address. It's going to automatically sync. This is one thing I love about Deal Check. Going to search my browser. No, I don't want to save that. Okay, so this brought back that the house was built in 1915, where Zillow did not have that. Just it's important to know when things were built, because if it's in a really, really older home, one thing I didn't see here is electrical panel. I don't want to assume that electric has been updated, so that'd be something I'd want to know right away, because that would affect underwriting, right? Just want to scroll through here real quick in case I missed it. And I'm looking for a breaker box. Also, if I were to do an inspection on this, I want to open up some of the outlets and just make sure that it's not knob and tube type wiring, or something worse, if there's something worse. 3-bed, 1.5 bath. Everything else checks out. So Deal Check will provide its estimate, but then it also provides the Realtor.com estimate. Both are over what it's currently listed for, which is interesting. Just because we're going to get closer to that. Rentcast estimate. Okay, so this is a little more than what our original market brief told us, I think. Yeah, $1,200 to $1,500 for a 3-bed. So let's go. Tax amount 1031 in 2025. These are numbers I'd want to verify. Property insurance seems pretty reasonable. Again, on the reasonable sale price. Here's all the pictures from the listing, and then the description, and then it's going to give you the listing realtor if you want to contact them. Anyway, let's look at some numbers here. So right away, you see this red X over here. I have my investing criteria built into this. It's very easy to change and manipulate that on the fly, but I have it set to what I'm looking for. We're going to make some adjustments here in a minute, so you know instantly, or as you're working through this, if this is something that potentially pencils out, right? So purchase price $319. I'm going to change a couple of variables here. We would do a DSCR loan on something like this, so we're going to expect 25% down. I'm going to say we would get an interest rate of 7.25. And then 30-year amortization. rehab cost, regardless of how great a property looks. Like this is almost turnkey. I definitely want to get the electrical checked out and do a typical inspection, right? But with any property, minimum of $1,000 per door, there's going to be something to come up, something that just has not been brought to the landlord's attention. Again, I think this is somebody's personal home, but that would need to be fixed. Cost overrun 10%. Amazon delivery guys here. Gross rent 2040. Vacancy rate about 10%. There is no other income. Operating expenses, I have 40% of the rent. I can get into that here in just a second. Give me just 1 second here. All right. Sorry. Apparently he needs a signature. And I'm not going to get up from this to do it. So, let's see. Long-term projections. Just kind of standard stuff. Oh, all right. Sorry. Got a little distracted there. All right. So we're good on this. Next thing I look at here is property analysis. It gives you right away cash needed based on the terms we put in the loan. Our cash flow, which is one of the main things we focus on, and right now that is ugly, right? Cap rate, don't really care about as much. Cash on cash return, we do. We want to get about an 8% cash on cash return minimum. Not negative, positive, actually. So let's look at this and see kind of what we might have to do to make it work, right? There's probably not a whole lot we can do, actually. Usually the only, especially where rates are today, the 1% rule is very hard to come by. Again, this is why we focus on off market, but I'm hoping one day we're going to find a little gem that we can say, hey, this actually works. So with interest rates where they are and where rents are where they are currently, the only other place that we really can, if everything else is true, right, as far as insurance, property taxes, vacancy, all that, as long as it's true, the only thing that we can really focus on is the purchase price. Now, what I normally see when we underwrite these is our target, and I'm going to click on this here in a minute. I want to tease you just a little bit. Don't want to spoil it. Our offer typically is about half price of what the list is, right? Now, shoot your shot. I am all for taking shots when possible. There has been, you can clearly see where they've owned it since 2005. My assumption is they're very close to having it paid off. Doesn't mean they're not, motivated or unmotivated in other ways, but you can almost tell they don't have a mortgage on it unless they did some refinance along the way, right? But they've had 6 months of being on the market and it's continually price dropped. So who knows what kind of offers they received and rejected. That's why I say shoot your shot, right? Go for it. So let's see what we would have to get. And it was listed at 320. I'm going to take a guess. Have not done this yet. I'm going to say we're going to have to come in at 160. No, it's even worse. Let me just make sure my criteria is correct. Cash on cash returns at least 8%. Debt coverage ratio, I do set it at 1.25. That is the typical ratio most banks and DSCR lenders will use to make sure the property covers itself, right? And that's the biggest thing. So it's limited by cash on cash return. Let's play around with this. Not that we're going to fudge the numbers to actually make it work for us, but I'm just going to take that off. And we're going to see, all right, now we're up. We're up to 160,000. 159. It's pretty close to what I said earlier. Let's save this and then go back to our property analysis tab. Cash on cash return is 5.4%. Cash flow is 207 a month. We're a long way from 319. They may take it, they may not. Shoot your shot. This is one example of why we focus on off market. So, beautiful property. Good luck to the sellers, everybody involved. For us, if we had to make it work as a rental, that's where we would come in. Is highest at 159. I really don't like that cash on cash return because we can get a better return with our money elsewhere. But it's not always a hard fast rule. If you are wondering what I mean by that, let me know. I don't know. I'll dive deeper in an upcoming video, or maybe this one. Maybe I'll dive deeper here. Let's see. All right. I see a few of you watching, so if you got questions, you're in the chat, you want to drop something, or just say hello. Say hello. I'm going to stick around for a little bit longer. We've got, and then I've got to get on some other phone calls. This one is an off-market property. I don't remember how I found this one, but it is a 2-bed, 1-bath. It's not a 3-bed, 2, which is okay. Those 2-bed, 1-baths, most all of our portfolio is 2-bed, 1-bath, actually. But I like this one for multiple reasons. Number one, it's off market, so we would have to deal with that. Number two, there is some work to get it up to speed, right? That's a really pretty tree. Squirrel. So I just want to go through and look at the pictures real quick, and then we'll underwrite it, and then we'll go through what an off-market campaign could look like. All right, pretty backyard, close to neighbors, but again, it's a rental. It's not my personal aspect. This is what I love. Now, I don't know when the last time this was updated. Go back. I clicked on the wrong button. This when I say this is updated, the listing here, or Zillow listing here, I don't know when the last time it was updated. The property itself, you can tell it hasn't been updated in a while, according to these pictures, but these pictures may be old. That orange shag carpet just screams 1980, along with the screen door. The orange shag carpet is throughout. Even in the kitchen. That fridge is probably still working, and I would not replace it until it absolutely died, because they don't make them like that anymore. That was back when they, it is in an odd place, but that was back when they made appliances that would last forever, right? You got the orange, looks like maybe vinyl countertops to match the carpet in the kitchen. I think that's carpet. It looks like it is in the kitchen. That's awesome. Pretty nice wallpaper. All this is screaming value add, right? And that was it. That's all we got. I imagine the bathrooms look very similar to this. So there's quite a bit of work that would have to go through this to make it right. Ceiling fans, probably some new window coverings. And like we were talking about before, checking the entire, the big four: electrical, water heater, roof, the age of the roof. Let's look at this outside pic, see if we can get any. We get no coverage on what that looks like. So roof, HVAC, hot water heater, and electrical. All right, so let's just look and see what kind of info we can find out about this over the last. It's part of this Zestimate. It does have central heat and air. Again, check the age of it. Sold in 2017 for 126. There's a quick turnaround from the year before. Okay. All right. So as before, we're going to just grab the address here. Going to go to deal check. I'm curious. I don't think I've done this before, but let's go to maps and let's just look at the distance between the two different properties that we're looking at. 50 Sterling Avenue. Okay, not far. Okay, I was just curious. All right, we're going to go back to my properties. I'm not going to go through the BRRRR calculator. It just takes a little bit longer to go through. We're going to make some assumptions as we go through treating this as a rental. So just for the sake of time, this is, and maybe the next time I'll do this one. We'll do one of those like that. It takes a little bit longer. A couple more variables. We'll do it next time. All right, so we're going to import property data. I think I copied this, but I can't remember. Let's go to here, paste it. The home was built in 1955. So, which, you know, I think we were talking about earlier in the market brief, there's a lot of older homes in there. So let's, you know, check the big four: roof, HVAC, water heater, electrical. Deal check estimate 260. Rentcast estimate. Rentcast is a sister company of Deal Check, by the way. $15.60 per month. We can clearly see we're not at the 1% rule. Here's one thing I would verify though is, where did I see it? Rent estimate 1492, which is the year that Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? So there's different sources here. You're within a range, I would acceptable range of being accurate. If you don't know what rental value is going to come from a property, call a local property manager or go to their site and look at listings and see what they have similar listings for. You know, the more market research you're going to do, the more data points that you have, the closer you're going to get it to it. Rentcast is a good one. Rentometer is another good one. I always look at both of them just to see if they're within reason of one another. If they are, I accept it as true. So, Rentcast estimate tax amount $677, quite a bit lower than the previous property. There's probably a good reason for that. Property insurance within reason, and then we have the listing or the pictures from the estimate. So, save and customize purchase price. It's not going to be 260. If the pictures that we're looking at, and we don't know about the HVAC, we don't know about the roof, we don't know about the electrical or the hot water heater, those things we would have to look at later. Let's assume for this exercise that all of those are relatively recently redone. But what we see on the pictures with the orange shag carpet in the kitchen, and we can assume what the bathrooms look like, we're going to have to put some money into it, right? So I'm going to say just roughly 50 to 60 grand into the property. Now that is flooring, that is paint, that is remodeling the bathroom, and also remodeling the kitchen. If we can keep the fridge, I want to keep the fridge because it's just going to work. It's probably going to work forever, right? So we're going to put in the repair. This is why this is a little bit different. Again, we're going to change this to 7.25 because we're going to do a DSCR loan. Purchase the rehab cost. Here's where I'm going to put the 50,000. And here's the difference between this calculator and the BRRRR module is the BRRRR module, we have an option to say we're going to do a hard money loan for the repairs, and then it calculates everything differently. So it does get a little more complicated, but it's more accurate, right? And if we were seriously considering this, I would go that route. But for the sake of time, I wanted to show this to you. Cost overrun still 10%. 50,000 is probably a little high. With that cost overrun, let's just say 40,000 plus 10%. Again, I'm ballparking stuff here. Gross rent, I would say that's probably accurate from two different sources. Vacancy rate, that's probably a little high. As far as underwriting, I would leave it this way just to be conservative in my underwriting, because I know that when you start the project and you're remodeling the property, that you're going to have a lot of vacancy initially, right? Now you may get a tenant in there or a resident, and they're there for the next 10 years. That would be great, right? So I'm going to leave it at that just for now. Okay. So we've got our numbers in here. We know right away it doesn't hit. Let's look at property analysis. Not too bad. Not too bad. Cash flow, not too bad, as in not as bad as the other one that we just looked at. By the way, I don't pay attention to a lot of the rules and investment returns. I focus on cash flow and cash on cash return. But if you do use some of the other, like return on equity, I don't even think return of equity is in here, but there's a lot of different ratios and return scenarios that you can look at and make pop up over here. I only use those two for these underwriting exercises. These quick back of the napkin tests, right? All right, so drum roll it. What's our offer need to be? 70. Yeah, it's rough. But who knows, right? Like, and I had a conversation with a guy earlier about something similar. He just didn't think there was enough opportunity in his market. And I was like, how much are you underwriting? How much are you talking directly to sellers? How much are you talking to realtors? He goes, well, I'm not. It's like, all right, well, you got to get out of your own way, right? So let's say we get it for 70 because it needs work, right? It according to the pictures, it needs work. And we buy it for 70. We put 50 into it. Then we turn around and rent it out. It's a dang good property at that point in time. Cash flow is $422 a month. Cash on cash return is our 8%. That's pretty good, pretty interesting. Now, would they take it? Who knows? Who knows? They bought it in 2017 for 126. Probably not. Probably not. We'll see. We'll see. I'm acting like we would make an offer on it. So that is an off-market property, right? We don't necessarily know what the condition is. We're going on some pictures that may have been done prior to it selling in 2017. So this is where I would change. As far as I was talking to chatting with Brandon, when we look at doing off-market properties or off-market campaigns, this is how we do them, right? Because anything on the MLS, as you saw with the first property that we looked at, we were way off. We were way off. The second one is pretty close. Is closer. But you never know. You never know. So here's what we do when we start building these campaigns. We go into PropStream, which, by the way, PropStream is free to use or free to start using. After that, you do have to pay for it, but you can build a list. Fort Worth. It's not Fort Worth. Fort Thomas. Fort Thomas, Kentucky. Fort Thomas, Kentucky. And then we start applying our filters, right? So immediately we can see there's 6,251 properties. Now that's everything that's vacant land, if there is any. The one thing I want to look at is Fort Thomas in a flood zone? They're right there by the river. I doubt it, but let me, or at least maybe not all of it. So we're going to look at this. So this is FEMA's flood map service. It's just msc.fema.gov. And, right now, as we're zoomed out it looks like the entire U.S. is under a flood zone, and I'm sure insurance companies love that. That's a conversation for another time. Fort Thomas, Kentucky. Let's just zoom in and see what we get here. That is the Ohio River. I almost called it the Mississippi. It's not. It's very interesting. It is not in a flood zone. They must have some really good levee system, because that's a big body of water. Here's how I'll know. So if you're not familiar with this website, so if it is in a flood zone, it'll turn one of these, the little areas will turn a little different color, blue, orange, or that blue and red kind of checkered. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit and give it time to refresh, because it's very odd not to have. There it is. Okay. You can see kind of over here on the east side. That's where all the flooding goes. Interesting. The reason I look this up is we typically stay away from properties that are in a flood zone, but you also need to know when you're looking for insurance, if you need to look for flood insurance. So there are some areas that are close to the river here, and I think this is maybe outside of Fort Thomas. Yeah, this is City of Bellevue. Okay, so cool. That's good to know, right? Okay, back to building the off-market campaign. So we go back to these, our PropStream here. We tap on filters. First thing that I choose is, excuse me, sorry. Just making sure we're still sharing the right window. It didn't look like it. First thing I choose is tired landlords, right? And PropStream identifies a tired landlord as somebody who's owned the property for over 15 years. We're going to go to property details. We're going to choose residential. We're going to do single family and multifamily 2 to 4. And you're going to notice this number up here to continue to change, right? Typically we see in more than, it's usually about, as we're building this, stacking these filters, there's usually 100 to 200 properties per zip code or per city. And so it'd be interesting to see what Fort Thomas comes up with. Single family, back to this, sorry, I got a little distracted. Single family, multifamily 2 to 4, so 1 to 4 units. We exclude anything in an HOA and anything with a pool. Now, I was talking with a guy yesterday who's in Las Vegas, and it's kind of very common, or what he said was, pools are very commonplace, and they're used to them as landlords. But in Vegas, if you want to have a rental property in a good location, in which he did. He goes, it has to be in the situation where there's an HOA in place. So we included the HOA in his list that we were looking at. But for most people, they don't want to mess with it, right? Just HOAs are HOAs. What do you call a group of Karens, right? An HOA. Association, we're going to exclude those. We're going to exclude pools. We're going to go down to here. We're going to choose off market. Again, because we're creating an off market campaign, we don't want to send a piece of mail to something that's listed on the MLS. Now, there has been situations where we build the list, we send the letters out, somewhere in passing that tired landlord list with a realtor, and it just makes for a fun conversation. But anyway, we don't focus on properties that are on market. The last thing we choose here to dwindle this down is owner information. We just want to contact individuals. We don't want to contact LLCs or trusts just because they're a little bit harder to get a hold of, and you don't know who you're dealing with specifically. So when we send our letters out, and I'll show you what those look like here in just a second, we try to be very personal with it. It's our first interaction with them, and so we want to come off as personal because we are personal. We want to be personal. We want to create a relationship with them, and it's very hard to do that from a corporation and a trust standpoint. We've just found that contacting corporations or trust, there's a lot of wasted marketing dollars. So we would let's just kind of view these 162 properties here. The next step I would do in PropStream, select it, actions, save. We're going to create a new one. I'm gonna name this for Brandon, right? So Brandon, I almost misspelled his name, Brandon Fort Thomas. Why is my save? I don't want to add to a marketing list. What's happening here? Oh, I see what I didn't choose the right thing. Create as new list. We're going to save. We're not going to skip trace these folks because we're not going to call them. We're just going to send them a piece of mail. The way that our system is designed is send out the mailers so that the landlords are aware of who you are. And if they're interested, they're going to give you a call, right? And then you start building a rapport, talking about their property, talking about if they have a painful property in their portfolio. And then you work to come to a deal if you can help them out and they can help you out. So now I've exported that or added the list. I'm going to go to Brandon and Fort Thomas. I'm going to show you a couple things here. If I can do this, can I hide? This is not what I want. I want this to go away so I can zoom in. I don't think I can do that. Here's the point I'm trying to make. When you get your list in here, you're going to sort it by address. And most counties, if there is not a number at the front of the address, that means it's a vacant piece of land. But Jay, I thought you chose 1 to 4 units. I did. The data is not perfect. In any system, the data is not perfect. So like here, perfect example. Thank you, Broadview Place. I would take that and I would just delete it, right? I would just delete that record. The other thing that I'm going to get rid of here is, so this is the property address over here. We're looking at the mailing address. Kind of giving you guys behind the scene. All these are little nuggets here. All these PO boxes we're going to take away too. We're not going to try to contact them. We get more return pieces of mail from PO box addresses than any other thing, right? So that's what we do. So we would take that, we would export it, we'd start working, creating our mailers. I'm going to show you what these looks like. We're going to wrap up. Here's what the outside of a mailers look like. Brightly colored envelopes, handwritten addresses. I can't say handwritten anymore. That's just something that's been ingrained in me. But we do have an auto pen. So think of Biden pardon kind of jokes. But it's a machine that uses a standard kind of e-pen, and it writes the addresses with our handwritten font. we put a actual, very say specific, but it's a specific stamp. I personally migrate away from using the American flag stamps because most junk mail comes with the American flag stamp on it, unfortunately. But then here's what the inside of the mailer looks like. That's probably what you guys are most interested in. Outside presentation is probably the most important, because first thing is you want to make sure the mailer gets opened, right? You want to make sure that, it doesn't go directly to the trash. Second thing is when it gets opened, you want there to be a connection. And so we do this with a couple, of course, return address, potential seller name. The sales copy on here, if you can't see it, is basically just says, hey, Mr. Landlord, I know we've never met, but I'm interested in buying 1 to 2 rental properties in Fort Thomas, right? The purpose of the letter is to introduce myself in hopes that you ever want to sell. What was the one we looked at? 50 Sterling Avenue, even though it's on the MLS, that you'll think of me and give me the first opportunity to purchase. Sincerely, signature, my cell phone, a couple PS lines, and then the personal photo of who I am in a local position. I don't know if Fort Thomas, I'm sure, has some kind of local place along the river that a lot of locals go. Take a picture there, right? Show that you're a local. You immediately have an advantage over some wholesaler in South Florida that's trying to get a deal from you. So that's what the mailers look like. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And if you want to further look at this, you can just go to w2capitalist.com/mailers, and you can see that too. If you want, findyournextBRRRR.com is another resource you can look at. If you want all of this just emailed to you directly, just go here, fill this out. Trying to think there's something else I was going to say there. But anyway, you can go here. You'll get another video of me showing you how to more in depth on just building the list and prop stream. It's about 15 or 20 minutes. And then you get all the templates and even the envelopes that we use that I was showing you earlier, where to get those on Amazon, get the best deal, right? So that's it. So Brandon, I appreciate you reaching out and giving us the opportunity to look at Fort Thomas, a community I knew nothing about until today. So for everybody else, if you're like Brandon and you want me to create a video like this for your hometown, drop the zip code in wherever this is, right? Drop a zip code in a comment. If you're a married, busy parent and you want to join us in our community where we do this on a weekly basis, we get really involved in helping you find and also fund your own properties. Reach out. Most of our community members, they're focused on finding 1 or 4 really good deals a year, and that's it. And this system allows them to do that. So